You think you know why you do the things you do, why you chose this job, why you dislike that person, why you believe what you believe. You have reasons, clear, sensible reasons, ready to give if anyone asks. And I am about to show you something genuinely unsettling. A large amount of the time, those reasons are fiction, invented after you already acted, by a part of your brain whose entire job is to make up a convincing story about you and hand it to you as the truth, without ever telling you it made the whole thing up. This is not lying, not in the way you normally mean it. It is stranger and deeper than that. Ordinary lying is when you know the truth and hide it. This is your own brain deceiving you, its owner, sincerely, constantly, and, it turns out, for reasons that are almost brilliant. There is a professional storyteller living inside your head. It never stops working. It has been narrating your life to you for as long as you have been alive, and you have never once caught it in the act, because it is very, very good at its job. This episode is about meeting it, and we know it is there, precisely, because of a series of extraordinary experiments. In the 1960s and 70s, neuroscientists worked with a very rare kind of patient, people whose brains had, in effect, been split in two. And what those split brains revealed was the storyteller, caught for the first time red-handed, making things up, confidently, and believing itself completely. So let me show you exactly what they saw, because once you see it, you will recognize it in yourself for the rest of your life. And I promise this is not a trick to make you distrust your own mind into paralysis. It is the opposite, because the punchline of this whole episode is genuinely surprising. This storyteller, this in-house liar, is not a defect. It is not a flaw evolution failed to fix. It is one of the most sophisticated tools your mind has. It is doing a job, several jobs, and some of them are keeping you sane, functional, and upright in a way that pure, cold honesty simply could not. By the end of this, you will not want to fire your storyteller. You will want to understand it, to know when to trust it, and the few dangerous moments when it will quietly try to kill you. So, let us go into the lab. The split brain. First, what it means. Your brain has two halves, two hemispheres. Normally they are joined by a thick bridge of nerve fibers, constantly passing information back and forth, so the whole thing acts as one. In a small number of patients, decades ago, that bridge was surgically cut. It was a last resort treatment for severe epilepsy, and it worked. But it left these patients in a truly strange condition. Two half-brains in one skull that could no longer directly talk to each other. And that gap let scientists do something that had never been possible. Send a message to one half that the other half could not hear. Now, one crucial fact. For most people, the ability to speak lives in the left hemisphere. The right hemisphere understands a great deal, but it cannot really talk. So the left brain is the one that answers questions. It is the one that speaks for you. So the experimenters did something ingenious. They flashed an instruction only to the right hemisphere, the silent one, something like the word walk, and the patient would stand up and start to walk. The right brain saw the command and acted on it. Simple. But here is where it becomes extraordinary, because then they asked the patient out loud, "Why are you getting up?" And the question goes to the left brain, the talking one, the one that answers. And the left brain has a problem. It genuinely does not know. It never saw the word walk. That was shown to the other half, the half it can no longer hear. So by every rule of honesty, the patient should say, I have absolutely no idea why I stood up. That would be the truth. But that is almost never what happens. Instead, instantly, smoothly, with total confidence, the left brain makes something up. Oh, I am going to get a drink. And here is the crucial part. The patient is not lying. They genuinely believe it. Their brain handed them a reason, and they accepted it as the truth, with no idea it had just been invented on the spot. The neuroscientist who ran these experiments, Michael Gazzaniga, gave this hidden storyteller a name. He called it the interpreter, a module in the left hemisphere whose entire job is to watch what you do and generate a running explanation for it. A commentary, a story of why. And the disturbing discovery was this: the interpreter does its job, whether or not it actually knows the reason. When it has the real cause, it reports it. When it does not go quiet. It does not say, unknown. It simply makes one up, a plausible story, and delivers it with exactly the same confidence as the truth. You cannot feel the difference between the two. This has a name: confabulation. And it is important to be precise about what it is, because it is not lying. Lying requires knowing the truth and choosing to conceal it. Confabulation is different and stranger. The person has no idea they are making it up. They fully believe their own invented story. The fabrication feels from the inside exactly like a memory, exactly like a real reason. In one of Gazzaniga's experiments, a patient's right brain was shown a snowy scene and the left a chicken. With his two hands he picked two matching images, a shovel for the snow, a bird for the chicken. Asked why the shovel, the talking brain, which never saw the snow, did not hesitate. "Oh," he said, "you need a shovel to clean out the chicken shed." Instant, seamless, and completely invented. The interpreter had been handed a fact it could not explain, and it wove a story to cover the gap without missing a beat. And now the part that turns this from a neurological curiosity into something about you. Because you might be thinking, fascinating, but those were patients with a severed brain. My brain is intact. My two halves talk to each other. So my interpreter has the real information. Sometimes. But the split-brain patients did not grow an interpreter. They just revealed the one everyone already has. The interpreter is running in your intact skull right now. And a great deal of what actually drives you, your emotions, your biases, your automatic reactions, the machinery under the floor, is just as invisible to your talking, explaining mind as that snowy scene was to the patient. So your interpreter does the same thing. It watches you act, often for reasons it cannot see, and it hands you a clean, confident story. And you believe it. Every time. So let us bring the interpreter out of the lab and into your actual day. Because once you know its signature, you see it everywhere. Psychologists have shown this in ordinary, intact people again and again. In one famous kind of study, people are shown a row of identical items, say several pairs of stockings, and asked to pick the one they like best. They reliably prefer the one on the right, a known quirk of how we look at rows. But when asked why they chose it, nobody says position. They point to the texture, the color, the quality, reasons. Confident, specific reasons. For a choice that was actually driven by something they could not see. The interpreter filling the gap. And this reorders something you assume about yourself. You feel like you reason your way to your conclusions. Weigh the evidence, then decide. Very often it runs the other way. The conclusion arrives first, fast, emotional, automatic, and then the interpreter builds the reasoning to justify it. Think about the last argument you had. Did you calmly weigh both sides and arrive at your position? Or did you feel instantly which side you were on and then generate the arguments to defend it? Most of our reasoning is not a judge weighing fairly. It is a lawyer hired after the verdict is already in to defend a client it did not choose. And the client is whatever you already felt. So a huge number of the reasons you give, to others and to yourself, are less like a genuine report from inside and more like a press release, a statement issued by the Department of Public Relations in your head, designed to make your behavior look coherent, justified, and sensible, both to the world and, crucially, to you. Not because you are unusually dishonest, because this is standard human equipment. Everyone is walking around with a press office in their skull, issuing confident explanations for decisions that were actually made in a back room they are not allowed to enter, which raises the enormous question, why? Why would evolution build a mind that hides its own reasons from itself and papers over the gap with fiction? And the answer is where this gets genuinely brilliant. The most powerful answer came from an evolutionary biologist named Robert Trivers. And it is one of those ideas that, once you get it, quietly rearranges how you see people, including yourself. Trivers asked a sharp question. Deception is everywhere in nature. Animals bluff, mislead, fake, and any creature being deceived is under huge pressure to get better at detecting deception. So a liar faces an arms race. The lie has to get past a mind that is hunting for lies, and that is hard, because lying leaves traces. Think about what happens when you lie deliberately. Some tension leaks, a flicker in the face, a shift in the voice, a hesitation. You are managing two things at once, the truth you are hiding and the falsehood you are presenting, and the strain shows. We are all, to some degree, built to sense that strain in others. So here is Trivers's staggering move. What is the perfect solution to the problem of leaking tells? Simple. Don't know you're lying. If you genuinely believe the falsehood yourself, there is no tension, no two-track strain, no leak. You present the lie with the total relaxed conviction of someone telling the truth, because, as far as your conscious mind is concerned, you are. So Trivers proposed something radical. We deceive ourselves in order to better deceive others. The self-deception is not a bug in the lying machine, it is an upgrade. Hide the truth from your own conscious mind, and you become a flawless liar, because you are no longer lying. You are sincerely mistaken, and sincerity is unbeatable. And this explains so much. The person who wrongs you and genuinely believes they were the victim. The colleague who takes credit and truly feels they did the work. They are often not cynically lying. Something in them has already rewritten the story before it reached their awareness, so that they can present their version with perfect, disarming conviction. The best liars in your life may not know they are lying at all, and, this is the uncomfortable part, neither do you when it is your turn. And there is experimental support for this now. Studies find that overconfident people, people who genuinely overrate themselves, are seen by others as more competent and gain higher status. The self-deception works. Believing you are better than you are actually helps convince everyone else. It buys real advantages, mates, allies, promotions, arguments won, which means the tendency got selected for. The ancestors who could sincerely believe their own flattering press outcompeted the ones burdened with accurate self-knowledge. You are descended from the great self-deceivers. It is in the equipment. But deceiving others is only half of why the storyteller exists. The other half is about keeping you going. And it is even more surprising because it turns out the storyteller does not only lie outward to others, it lies inward to keep you functioning. And this is where two psychologists overturned something everyone had assumed about a healthy mind. For most of the 20th century, the assumption was obvious. A mentally healthy person sees reality accurately. Mental health means clear sight. Distortion means illness. It seemed too obvious to question. And then, in the 1980s, Shelley Taylor and Jonathan Brown looked at the actual data and found the opposite. They found that normal, mentally healthy people reliably hold three specific illusions about themselves. Not delusions, mild systematic distortions. First, they overrate themselves, their abilities, their character, their charm. Most people sincerely believe they are above average, which is statistically impossible for most people to be. Second, they are unrealistically optimistic about the future. They expect more good and less bad to happen to them than the base rates allow. And third, they overestimate their control, how much their choices actually determine outcomes in a world full of luck and chaos. Three flattering distortions held by the healthy mind. Woven so smoothly you experience them not as illusions, but as simple, obvious reality. And the truly counterintuitive part. Taylor and Brown argued these illusions are not just harmless, they are adaptive. They promote well-being. They fuel the confidence to try hard things, the optimism to persist, the sense of control that lets you act instead of freeze, the slightly inflated self that can walk into the room and risk being rejected. A person who saw their real odds, their real averageness, their real lack of control, with perfect clarity, might simply never get out of bed. The illusions are load-bearing. They are part of the scaffolding that holds an ordinary functioning life upright, which raises a genuinely disturbing question. If the healthy mind is the one gently lying to itself, then who is the one seeing clearly? And the answer researchers kept finding is one of the most sobering results in all of psychology. The people who see themselves and their situation most accurately, with the least distortion, are, in a number of studies, the mildly depressed. It even has a name: depressive realism. In certain experiments, for instance, judging how much control you have over an outcome that is actually random, non-depressed people confidently overestimate their control. And the mildly depressed? They tend to get it right. They see the randomness. They see accurately how little they command. Sadder, the old phrase goes, but wiser. Now, I have to be very careful here, and I will be more careful still in a few minutes, because this is easy to misread in a way that is both wrong and harmful. This does not mean depression is enlightenment, or that seeing clearly makes you depressed. The picture is far more complicated, and the finding is narrower than the headline. We will come back to that. Hold it lightly. But even in its careful form, it points at something profound. That a certain amount of accuracy about your smallness, your limits, and your lack of control is genuinely hard to bear, and that the ordinary healthy human mind protects you from the full force of it with a soft, constant layer of self-flattering illusion. Reality, it seems, comes at a slightly higher emotional cost than most of us could pay in full. So evolution installed a discount. And the discount is a lie, which completely inverts the advice you have been given your whole life. So here is the turn, and it goes against almost everything you have been told about how to live well. The entire self-improvement tradition rests on one command: see yourself clearly, face the hard truth. Radical honesty. Strip away your illusions and look at what is really there. And the evidence we have just walked through says that command is at least half wrong. Because your mind was not built for total, unflinching self-honesty. It was built deliberately by evolution to do the opposite, in specific, load-bearing ways. And a person who somehow succeeded in stripping away every illusion would not arrive at enlightenment. A good deal of the time, they would arrive at depression. Because the illusions are not just noise cluttering up a clear signal. Some of them are structural. They are holding weight. The belief that you can do the hard thing is what gets you to attempt it. The belief that the future can be better is what gets you to build toward it. The belief that your actions matter is what gets you to act at all. Pull those out in the name of pure honesty, and you do not get a wiser, clearer person standing in the rubble. You often get someone who cannot see a reason to try. The self-help fantasy imagines that under all your comforting lies is a strong, true self waiting to be freed. Sometimes what is actually under there is the raw, cold arithmetic of how small and uncertain a single human life really is. And that arithmetic is not always survivable at full volume. So here is the line to carry out of this. You were not built for total honesty with yourself. You were built to be gently, usefully, mercifully deceived by an inner storyteller whose lies are, quietly, part of what keeps you standing. And I want to be clear about what this does and does not mean, because it is a knife that cuts both ways, and in a moment I am going to turn it around hard. But sit first with the gentler half. It means you can stop treating every one of your comforting beliefs as a weakness to be hunted down and destroyed. Some of that comfort is doing a job. The person who thinks they are a slightly better parent, partner, worker than they strictly are, and is motivated by that belief to keep showing up and trying, is not a fool to be corrected. They are running healthy software. The storyteller here is not your enemy. It is closer to an old, slightly dishonest friend who has been talking you off the ledge of cold reality your whole life. But that same friend has a dark side, and ignoring it can be fatal. So let us name clearly what the useful illusions actually do, because it will matter enormously when we separate them from the deadly ones. At their best, the storyteller's lies are fuel. Every hard thing a person has ever attempted, starting the business, writing the book, asking someone out, having the child, leaving the safe job, was launched on a slight overestimate of the odds. If everyone saw their true, sober chances of success, most of these things would never be started. The mild delusion of the founder, the artist, the lover, is what overrides the cold statistics that say, probably not. And illusions do a second job. They let you recover. When something goes wrong, the interpreter goes to work softening it. It was not my fault. It was going to fail anyway. This is a blessing in disguise. Are these always true? No. Are they useful? Enormously. They are what lets a person absorb a failure and get up, instead of being flattened by an accurate, unforgiving account of exactly how and why they lost. A perfectly honest mind would replay every failure at full accuracy, assign blame precisely, and carry the complete weight of it forever. The self-serving story is what lets you set some of that weight down, fairly or not, and keep walking. Resilience, it turns out, is not always about seeing clearly. Sometimes it is about the merciful blur the storyteller lays over the wound. And there is a third, deeper job: coherence. The interpreter takes the scattered, contradictory, often random mess of your actions and impulses and weaves them into a single, continuous story. A self. A person named you, who does things for reasons and makes sense over time. That story is, in important ways, a fiction, smoothing over how contradictory and driven by forces you can't see you actually are. But it is a necessary fiction. It is what gives you a stable identity to live from. Without the storyteller stitching it together, there might be no unified you at all, just a sequence of disconnected states. So the interpreter is not only lying to you, it is, in a real sense, composing you, which is exactly why we cannot just tear it out. But we absolutely must learn where it turns dangerous. So now I turn the knife around, because everything I have just praised has a lethal edge. And if I left you thinking self-deception is simply good, I would be doing something genuinely dangerous. The exact same mechanism that keeps you upright in small doses will kill you in large ones. Because the storyteller does not know when to stop. Its instinct is always the same: make the story more comfortable. And comfort, past a certain point, is deadly. The same voice that says, "You can do this hard thing," also says, "That lump is probably nothing," that drinking is not really a problem, that marriage is fine, that the numbers will turn around, the business is not really failing. This is denial. And denial is just the interpreter doing its comforting job in a situation where comfort is exactly the wrong response. The evolutionary biologist we met earlier, Trivers, spent part of his career on precisely this dark side. He even analyzed a plane crash, arguing that self-deception among the crew, the refusal to fully register a clear and present danger, helped doom the flight. The comforting story is fatal precisely when reality is trying to warn you, and the interpreter smooths the warning away to keep you calm. The symptom you do not get checked, the addiction you reframe as a choice, the relationship you keep explaining instead of leaving, the feedback you rationalize away. Every one of these is the storyteller doing the thing it does, protecting your comfort, in the one kind of moment where comfort is the enemy. So the skill is not, stop deceiving yourself. You cannot, and total success might sink you. The skill is dose and domain. Illusions about your potential, I can grow, I can improve, I can handle this, are mostly helpful. They fuel the attempt. But illusions about your dangers, the smoke from the engine, the symptom, the debt, the warning everyone else can see, are potentially fatal. That is where you must override the storyteller deliberately and look at the cold data even though it hurts. The wise person is not illusion-free, they are illusion-aware, generous with comforting stories about who they can become, and ruthless, surgical, unforgiving with comforting stories about a danger that is actually real. And now a second, quieter honesty about the science itself. Because I have told you a clean, compelling story tonight, and a clean, compelling story is exactly the kind of thing you should be a little suspicious of. So let me complicate my own case. The idea that healthy people are happily deluded, the positive illusions research, was hugely influential. It was also challenged. Hard. Other researchers argued the original studies leaned too much on people rating themselves, which is a shaky way to measure accuracy. Some later work questioned whether the illusions are as universal or as beneficial as the headline suggested. And depressive realism, the sadder but wiser finding, is narrower than the neat phrase implies. Depressed people are not magically accurate about everything. In some domains they are accurate where others are inflated. In others they are inaccurately bleak, too harsh, too hopeless. It is not that depression is truth, it is that on certain specific judgments, one particular illusion happens to lift. So take the whole picture as a powerful, partly proven reframe, not a settled law. The interpreter is real, that is solid, replicated neuroscience. The evolutionary logic is compelling. But the precise claim that illusions make you healthier is contested, and honest researchers still argue about it, which, I would gently point out, is exactly the intellectually honest posture the storyteller in your head would prefer you skip, in favor of the clean, satisfying version. Even here it is working, and there is one more limit, the deepest one, and it is almost funny. You might think, fine, I will just introspect harder, look inside, catch my interpreter in the act, root out my own illusions by careful self-examination. But think about who runs your introspection. The interpreter, the same storyteller. So when you look inside to check whether you are deceiving yourself, the report you get back is written by the very department under investigation. It will happily hand you a flattering conclusion about your own honesty. I am, you will decide, unusually self-aware, and that verdict is itself very possibly a confabulation. You cannot fully use the mind to audit the mind. The auditor is on the payroll. So if you cannot trust the mirror inside your own head, what can you actually do? And the answer is the practical heart of this whole episode. If the internal mirror is compromised, you have to use external ones. Mirrors the storyteller cannot reach in and bend, because there are things outside your skull that do not care about your comfort, and those are your real instruments of honesty, not deeper navel-gazing, which the interpreter controls, but hard, external, uncomfortable data. The first mirror is other people, specifically the ones who will tell you the truth. The friend brave enough to say the hard thing, the colleague who disagrees, the people whose feedback stings, precisely because it slips past the press office and reports on the version of you that you cannot see. The instinct is to defend against them. The wiser move is to treasure them. They can see your blind spot because it is not blind to them, and the reflex test is simple. When someone gives you feedback that stings, and your interpreter instantly produces 10 reasons they are wrong, biased, or do not understand, that speed, that heat, that is not a sign they are wrong. It is often the exact sound of the storyteller rushing to defend a comfortable illusion you did not know you had. The second mirror is the track record. What actually happened? Not your memory of it. The interpreter edits memory constantly, softening, reframing, casting you as the hero. But the hard record, what you actually did, what actually resulted, the outcomes, not the story about the outcomes. This is why writing things down in advance is so powerful. Predict what will happen before you know, and then check. The interpreter cannot go back and edit a prediction you already wrote down. It is a fixed point outside its reach. Reality, measured and recorded, is the one mirror the storyteller cannot fog. Everywhere you can replace a comfortable story with an actual number, an actual record, an actual outcome, you take back a little ground from the liar within. And the third tool is internal, but it is not more introspection. It is a single, humble sentence, kept ready for the moments that matter. And the sentence is, I do not actually know why I did that. It sounds like nothing. It is enormous. Because every time you say it, instead of instantly accepting the interpreter's confident story, you open a crack. A small space between you and your own explanation. And in that space, real self-knowledge occasionally becomes possible, not by looking harder for the true reason, but simply by admitting the confident one you were handed might be the storyteller, improvising, again. So what do you actually walk away with? Not, never trust yourself again, That way lies paralysis, and anyway the distrust would just be another story. What you walk away with is a changed relationship with your own certainty. You are a storyteller who has forgotten they are telling a story. That is not a flaw in you specifically. It is the standard condition of having a human mind. Everyone you have ever met is doing it. Every confident explanation you have ever heard, including your own, came partly from an in-house press office, spinning, and knowing that does not make you cynical. It makes you humble in a very specific, useful way. You hold your reasons a little more loosely. You say, "I might be wrong about why," more often. You get curious about your own certainty instead of just trusting it. And you go looking for the external mirrors, because you finally understand the internal one has an agenda. And at the same time, you make peace with the storyteller, because it is not going anywhere, and you would not actually want it to. It is the thing that lets you get up and try, that helps you survive the failure, that stitches your scattered days into a someone. You just want it on a slightly longer leash, and watched closely in the few places its comfort turns deadly. So keep the small, warm, load-bearing lies, the ones that get you out of bed, that let you hope, that help you forgive yourself enough to continue. Those are not weaknesses. They are, quietly, part of what a life is built from. But stay ruthless in the danger zones, the symptom, the addiction, the warning. There, and there especially, override the comforting voice and look. The old promise was that the truth would set you free, and sometimes it does. But the deeper, stranger truth is this. You were never designed to hold the whole truth about yourself at once. You were designed to be told a story, a mostly kind one, so that you could bear to keep living inside it. Knowing that, knowing there is a gifted, tireless, mostly kind liar living behind your eyes, narrating you to yourself every waking second, will not make it stop. But it changes everything about how you listen. And that, the quiet, humble, lifelong listening, is the closest a human being ever gets to actually knowing themselves. See what people hide, even from themselves.